Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.
From Mansurs on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge, we're out to lunch with editor of the Baton Rouge Business Report, Stephanie Regal. It's business Baton Rouge style.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Regal. Welcome to Out to Lunch. Technology is taking over so many aspects of our lives, from things like basic accounting and word processing to retail to even building custom cabinetry. It can be intimidating and hard to get your mind around until you understand what computers and robots are all about and how to make them work for you. Logan Leger has such an understanding. He's a software engineer and entrepreneur in Baton Rouge who founded the software development firm Aperio back in 2010 after a few failed attempts at founding internet startups. Logan was just a college student at LSU at the time. Today, he is CEO of a company that creates and markets apps for the web and for smartphones. In the past 7 years, Aperio's clients have grown both locally and nationwide. In fact, the company recently opened an office in Denver, Colorado. Logan, it's an impressive story. Thanks for being here on Out to Lunch today.
Thanks for having me.
Mike Gennaro is another aspiring young entrepreneur who is also using technology, but in quite a different way. Mike designs and builds custom cabinetry through his company Barndog Mill, which he founded in 2011. What's unique about Mike and Barndog Mill is that it utilizes robotic technology with a CNC machine to help make cabinetry, which enables the company to be more efficient and therefore less expensive while still maintaining the standards of beautiful handcrafted wooden cabinetry. Now, CNC stands for Computer Numerical Control, in case you were wondering, and it's basically a process of using computers to control the tools like the lathes and the mills and the routers. Mike's going to explain it all to us and what kind of market out there is for these products. So, Mike, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you very much.
Well, Logan, we'll start with you. Your first idea was a failure, an app you and your partner created that didn't work out. So how did you turn this failure into the success that you are today?
Yeah, so it's always fun to talk about failures. I typically say that my previous ventures had varying levels of success, which is a much nicer way of putting it. But yeah, so I think failure teaches us a lot about how to grow and how to get better. And
Sure.
There were a lot of failures. I started several software as a service, type companies, and some of them were, it was product market fit. We couldn't find a good market for it, even though the product is great. Or some of them were failures of not being able to raise enough money to build the product how we wanted. So there are a lot of different, things that we did that we learned from, and then sort of coming out of that, realized that the skills that I had picked up building the products were extremely valuable. And so other people were asking me like, hey, can you build an app for me? I see you doing it for yourself. And I'm like, sure, yeah. And so it just kind of stuck, and the service started growing, and that's really how it started.
So what kinds of apps? Do you have like a special type of app that you're known for, or maybe your most famous one?
Yeah, so a lot of the work that we do is in the health or medical or sort of lifestyle wellness industries or in education industries. So those are our two primary sectors that we serve. One of our big projects right now, we actually are working with the government to produce some apps that help their employees stay in shape and stay healthy and improve their lives. So it's very health focused. It's backed by a research team that's actually out at Pennington. So they did the research that created to create the health and wellness system in order to improve the lives of these people, and we basically commercialized it, turned it into a product.
Oh, that's very, very cool. Well, speaking of cool, cutting-edge things, Mike, you work with robots to build cabinetry. Do you program these robots and tell them what to do, or is this a software that you bought that tells your machines how to cut the wood and design it and do whatever it does?
Well, about a year and a half ago, it was just me in the garage, and this huge truck pulls up in the country on Sunnyside Lane,
Okay.
Zachary, Louisiana, and it had the most incredible machine on it, and I had no idea how to use it. I just knew that the possibility was there that if I could figure this thing out, that we could cash flow over and above the note on it. And so the CNC arrived, and they plopped it right in my driveway and said, "You need to get a forklift to bring this in that shop." And I said, "Oh, no." We got it in there, and all of a sudden it was just game on. My wife started to watch it kind of collect some dust as I was learning, and
Right.
one step at a time. It comes with software. It's just
Okay.
a big metal 4x8 machine with a robotic router on it.
Okay.
And so the first time I used it, I hit the button to say start, and it went, and it took that big cutter and it turned it on, and it, like dominoes, it knocked over all of these expensive bits across the way. So there were definitely, I had my share of failures with that as well, but now I'm to the point where I can draw something on software artistically and then put that into the program, and it will cut it out successfully.
Very, very cool. Now, were you in the cabinetry business before you went digital with it?
I was kind of a hardcore furniture maker, and I didn't really want to be in cabinetry until the flood happened, and we hired someone, and I felt that pressure for the first time of having to make sure somebody else got paid, and I really found a love of it. So we started making cabinetry, and then after the flood kind of all of that pressure from having to get those orders out very quickly kind of died down, I was back to furniture making and cabinetry. So,
Okay, so you do both now.
yes, cabinetry is our bread and butter, and we want to be known for that, but I can't give up that artistic side of furniture yet.
And the machines, the robotic machines, the CNC makes it more efficient. How?
Incredibly. So in the past, I would take maybe 3 weeks to make a credenza for somebody. It's usually 3 days for a table or something, but now we can print out an entire kitchen in a day.
Wow.
It's I call it printing because it actually takes plywood and it cuts it out, and it's like you receive a printout of all of these parts. And so the labor now goes into screwing the parts together, and we get to, I say, focus on all of the finer details like dovetail joinery if we still want to do that.
Right.
But the CNC machine does.
So does it take the artisanship out of the craft itself?
That's the first thing people started to ask me. They're
Oh,
like,
good, I'm glad
'cause
I
it
asked
used
a
to be
good
called a
question.
handmade, what was it? Handcrafted home furnishings at first. And, I struggled with that a little bit, and then I was like, no, this is just too cool. I don't care anymore. I really love to just make things and push it into a computer.
And it looks good.
Yeah, no, so my specialty is robotics. I love that part of it.
Now, speaking
So-
of making, Logan, do you actually develop the software yourself for the apps that you sell?
Yeah, totally. So we have there are foundational building blocks, that the computer has the underlying like processor and then everything else, and we build the software from scratch to lay on top of that. So it is very much taking very much like he will take he'll take like wood and nails and stuff and put it together. We've got our own wood and nails and sort of build things based on those building blocks that we have.
Very, very cool. Now, y'all both have such unique names for your companies, New Aperio and Barndog Mill. What's the story behind these great names?
Yeah, so Aperio is a Latin word which means to discover. And so we sort of, the way we think about what we do for our clients is to help them discover their potential or discover, what they want to do through either web or mobile. So the new part of it is just to signify that technology changes so rapidly, and it
Yes.
changes on a daily, sometimes hourly basis, and we have to constantly keep ourselves fresh and in the know of what's changing and what the new stuff, to stay on the cutting edge. So that new on the front there just emphasizes that fact.
Interesting. What about the Barndog Mill?
Well, I have a confession to make. It kind of sounds country and all, but I'm a city boy from Metairie.
Okay.
All the way. And we moved out to Zachary, and I was really feeling the whole.
The bucolic thing.
Yeah,
huh?
I wanted to fit in so bad. So we had a garden shed, and it looked kind of like a barn, and I had a a dog. My father-in-law would come over and he said, that dog looks like he's made out of spare parts. So it was me, the dog, and a mill. So I said, there's a barn, a dog, and a mill. I'm Barndog Mill.
It does. It sounds cool. It really sounds. It sounds even cooler than the story behind it is. Huh? How much does it cost to get an app made, Logan?
It really ranges. The complexity behind app. It's like an engineering project. We can take on a project and it'll take us 6 weeks or 8 weeks, or it could take us an entire year. It really varies. A lot of the stuff that we do, like one of our core focuses is in sort of medical and health, and a lot of those projects are very technical and there's a lot of science involved, and so really digging into them takes a lot of time, and so they end up being very extensive projects. So it really varies on depending on the complexity of the project, but it's definitely more than you would expect for a website to cost, but less than you would expect to spend when you're like constructing a building or something.
So you're not going to answer the question, in other words?
Well, it's just there's so many variables.
Yeah.
I would hate to give you numbers and then be.
Try me. You can. But you all work for big clients? I mean, hospitals or clinics or healthcare companies?
Our clients range. We do work with startups a lot. I mean, one of our core passions, obviously, I'm an entrepreneur as well, is helping entrepreneurs. So we'll work with companies who are just getting off the ground. It's like one or two people trying to put together their first version of their product. We do a lot of that. For our bigger clients, some of our bigger clients are some of the biggest corporations in the world. So it really is a huge range.
So you'll have people come to you with an idea for an app that can be really great or really stupid, or?
Yeah. So actually, we get that a lot. People come to us and just pitch an idea, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I've heard this idea 14 times, and it's not
going to work.
Idea. but actually, if we. It's an interesting topic because I think over the 7 years that I've done this, people always find me whenever they're starting to think about technology. And when I first started doing this, the quality of ideas that people were coming to me with were very low. There just weren't very good ideas. And now, 7 years later, I'm starting to get people come to me that have legitimately great ideas. These are high class ideas that you would expect to find coming out of Silicon Valley. So
that's so interesting. Is that because this market is maturing, or just because
totally.
People are more sophisticated and used to apps?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just I think the whole market is maturing. People are understanding the technology better as they use it on a daily basis. And so whenever they see a problem, they're like, oh, this could be made way better by the existence of an app. Or they say, I have this problem, an app could fix this. And I think that's sort of where it's coming from.
Now, as a software developer, what you learned in school 7 to 10 years ago, probably a lot of that is outdated by now. How do you stay current? I mean, y'all don't have
totally.
CE courses like lawyers or social workers or doctors do. I mean, do you have to just keep up with industry trends?
Yeah, so that's a good question. A lot of it is, we go to developer conferences and things of that nature. But we spend actually 4 days of our work week on client work, and that last day we spend on our continuing education. So 20% of our time is spent experimenting with new technologies and new processes and learning new things so that we can then go and employ those for our clients. But you're right. I mean, what I learned in school was not really applicable anymore, but what they teach you in engineering school is how to think and how to solve problems.
That's
and
great.
So the nature of the education is incredibly relevant because all I do all day is solve problems, either solving it for clients or solving it in my own business. So that education was very valuable.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Riegel. We're talking to Logan Leger of New Aperio and Mike Gennaro of Barndog Mill. We'll be right back after this very short break. You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Riegel. We're talking to Logan Leger of New Aperio and Mike Gennaro of Barndog Mill. Now, Mike, in terms of your background in education, how did you learn how to do this?
Well, I'm a philosophy graduate from the University of New Orleans, but I take even more pride in being a law school failure.
Oh.
So,
congratulations.
Oh, thank you. But in law school, they kind of gave us a little bit of I got a business background there, right? I'll never forget, there was this professor, Professor Litvinoff, he said, Mr. Gennaro, he called me Mr. Soprano, actually. So, Mr. Soprano, you will either keep your girlfriend or you will fail law school. So I kept the girlfriend and I failed law school, and then we got married and moved to the country and started this company a few years later.
So you made the right choice.
I think he wanted me to keep the girlfriend. He passed away, since then, but I look upon that talk with him fondly.
Yeah.
But education, nothing prepared me really for woodworking other than just kind of playing around with things and experimenting artistically. And my father used to float in pieces of lumber, and he would make guitars out of those. So he was
nice.
Yeah, he kind of just piddled around with wood and everything.
And that was where it sort of came from.
Sure.
This is a point in the show where we take a little break, and it's called The Best Advice. So I ask you a question like, a lot of times we all know somebody who has advice for you. And sometimes it's really great advice about a business meeting you should go to, a guy you have to meet. Other times this advice turns out to be not so great. Who has given you advice that you've either taken and it's turned out well, or you haven't taken and maybe that turned out well, or maybe you wish you had?
Yeah, that's a good question. We call on our community to help us as we're going through things, and I think probably one specific instance that's really prominent in my mind. So when I was in college and I had started the company, things started going well, and I was in engineering school, which is just brutally difficult, and I was also trying to run a company, which is also brutally difficult. So I was constantly busy and stressed. And at a certain point, I realized that, our company is growing and we're successful. And the limiting factor here is my inability to be fully committed to it because I'm also in school. And so I had a really big moment in my life where it was like, okay, maybe I should drop out. Maybe what I need to do is to drop out and not finish my degree and go full time in the business and really commit to it. And, so I had actually started the process of dropping out of school. It was a decision that I had made. I hadn't really told my family yet, but I had made this decision. And so I was on campus one night, and I think this was probably my junior year, and it was during a finals period or something where I was really under a lot of stress. And walking around campus late at night, my grandfather called me out of nowhere, right? And just started talking. He's like, "What's up? Tell me how things are going." And so I was telling him, I was like, look, I'm under a lot of stress. Things are really difficult. And he said, look, if it wasn't worth having, if the degree wasn't worth having, it wouldn't be hard to get. Yeah. And I think that I look back on that moment because I decided to stay in school. I mean, he really pushed me to say, look, having a degree is worth something, and it's valuable to finish. And because of that, I stayed in school, and I am glad for it because I learned a ton in engineering school that ended up being very helpful. And having that brand of LSU behind me and that piece of paper that says, yes, I am qualified to do this work, has really been a boon in my business.
That's a wonderful story. I love that. What about you, Mike? Do you have an equally compelling story?
Okay, after the law school failure, I remembered riding in my uncle's vehicle. I was doing property management for him. His name is Uncle George Bahi in Baton Rouge. And he was teaching me about real estate and everything, and I was working with him in the summer. And he knew I was kind of disappointed in myself at that time, just looking for some sort of career. And he said, Mike, if you could write your ticket right now, just write your ticket. You could go anywhere you want. Go to any program that you want in the world. What would you do? And I said, I would like to be a shopkeeper, Uncle George. I had had my fill of school and everything, and he was disappointed with the answer, but I said, no, I mean it. I want to go home and raise a family, and I want to be around my wife, and my son was young at that time, and so I just made furniture in the garage, and from there the business has grown and everything has kind of worked itself out. And we did take his advice and invest in real estate along the way to kind of hedge ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that was important.
And that was good advice.
Yes, very good. But I think ultimately staying true to that, write your own ticket, whatever it is, even if you're going to be a shopkeeper, you can still win, you can still make money, you can still have a wonderful life.
Very nice. Are you ultimately heading towards building a furniture factory? Is that the long-term goal?
I don't know how big we should get. We're ultimately headed towards a complete client satisfaction experience. I don't want to be categorized with those people those other outfits who disappoint people or get complaints.
I mean, it seems to me, and I could be totally off on this, but in Baton Rouge at least, you have this really high-end segment of the market, gorgeous, and they fancy custom designed cabinetry, the furniture, the whole thing. And then you've got the stuff you buy at the furniture store. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of middle price point, quality that's not junk, that's nice looking, but not this over the top. Is that true? And where do y'all fit into that spectrum?
We like to fit into the higher end of the spectrum. I like to tell the clients that we're high end right now, but I'll borrow something from the tech industry and just say we're kind of like a freemium model a little bit. We offer, for a long time we offered free dovetails with every single build. And dovetails are just this really old world joinery that happens right where the two panels meet on a custom drawer.
Okay.
So I would give those away to everybody. You wouldn't have to pay a dime more. And as we kind of have gone along, then the prices have gradually kind of crept up. But people understand who we are now. So they're not paying a super high premium for us, but they know what they're going to get when they come and see us.
What's the competition like for new Aperio?
Yeah, it's interesting. So actually, in this market, there are not a lot of companies like ours.
There are not, I don't think.
No, it's really nice, but it's also, I think, it's also difficult because it shows the lack of sophistication in the market and lack of size of the market, to be honest, which is partially why we have tried to move out of the market and go to places like Denver, where we recently established an office, because the market is not big enough to sustain a level of growth that we want to get to.
Really?
Yeah.
And what about like regionally? I mean, can you move into New Orleans or say Lafayette or even just nearby Jackson or Little Rock or something?
So yeah, no, there. I think regionally there's a decent sized market. You look at places. So one of our niches is medical, and so we can look at Birmingham has a big medical market, so we can move into that market. I think there are a lot of opportunities for us regionally for sure, but it is definitely we have found that we're sort of bumping up against the ceiling of what we would say is our high end growth potential here, because we're getting most of the work that we want to get locally.
And there's been so much talk here about building a tech ecosystem. Totally. And when IBM came here back in 2013, it was transformative, game changer, or so they said. Yeah. Talking to software developers like yourself and other tech companies here, it hasn't happened yet. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. I think IBM coming here was we thought it was sort of the harbinger, right? It's like, this is the first big tech company that is going to plant some roots here, and they're going to hire people. Because I think the biggest thing for us is having the level of talent that comes out of LSU and even UL and some of these other schools in computer science is keeping them here. And we can't do that yet because there's not enough, there wasn't enough jobs. But IBM has sort of helped to build some of those jobs, and we're starting to see the numbers. So we are actually outpaced. So now we have too many jobs for not enough talent. And so we sort of inverted the problem, and that's a very good thing. The problem is we just need to get the quality of jobs higher. Because if you actually look locally, salaries are way too low for a city of our size, which Baton Rouge is a cheaper place to live than Silicon Valley, but even for that disparity, the salaries are
still too low.
It's still way too low. And I think part of that problem are the companies that we lured here are just not incentivized to offer that high level of
and they
job.
thought they could come here and find cheap labor.
Exactly. That is definitely
Podunk,
part of
Hayseed, Baton Rouge will get lots of tax breaks in a big new building and hire people on the cheap.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm concerned about is when you start to dig into deals like these, tech companies are not, they're not like an Exxon that comes and puts roots here because they spend $1 billion and they build a plant that they can't just move, right? You have to stay here for a while and get your return off of that investment. Well, tech companies don't really put down those kind of roots. And so one thing that I'm concerned about is if you look at some of these deals that we have made, which at the time I was a huge proponent of, they've done these deals all over the country, and as soon as they expire, they leave. And I think that is something that I'm not saying that we shouldn't do these deals. I'm saying that's something that we need to factor in a little bit better, because I'm not sure that we have. So it's a very interesting question. I think ultimately my hope is that we see more homegrown tech companies. I spoke earlier about how some of these ideas we have are getting really, really good. I think what we should do instead is invest in our local companies, because if we do that, guess what? Local companies don't leave.
Yeah.
They put down roots here and they stay. And so if we can incentivize the community and build it up from inside out, I think the rest will follow.
That's such a great point. Local companies like Barndog Mill, for instance. How is Baton Rouge as a place to do business for you, Mike? Good market?
Absolutely, 100%. So we just took a trip to Austin 2 weeks ago, and it's kind of funny. It was actually on a prompting. You had reposted an article from some gentleman that wrote about is Baton Rouge a good place to continue to do business? Mm-hmm. And on my way out, I was like, no, maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting sick of this. I get to Austin, and I see that the South Downs type box homes, like a 1,500 to 2,000 square foot home there, costs about $500,000 over there or more. Wherever I travel, I always like to pick up new ideas and imagine myself in that market. And in Austin, I couldn't possibly imagine getting a shop space anywhere. My rent is so low on Highway 19 on the way to Slaughter right now. So there's opportunity here. We can afford to pay our guys and girls better here, and provide a decent living for them while still paying all of our bills and producing great products.
All right. Well, Mike Gennaro and Logan Leger, it's good to know that young, talented entrepreneurs such as yourselves are helping to grow the tech ecosystem and the local crafts by using technology. And your companies bring a lot to Baton Rouge. So thanks for sharing your stories today on Out to Lunch.
It was an honor. Thank you.
My guests today on Out to Lunch have been Logan Leger of New Aperio and Mike Gennaro of Barndog Mill. You can find out more about New Aperio and Barndog Mill by following the links on our website. It's batonrouge.la and wrkf.org. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producer is Peter Raschuti. And our Baton Rouge business consultants are Charlie D'Agostino and Ann Edelman. You can see photos from this show on its batonrouge.la and on our Facebook page. These photos are taken by Ken Stewart. You can get this show as a podcast, you can listen to past shows, and you can keep up with us on all kinds of social media by going to our websites. It's batonrouge.la and wrkf.org. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for its batonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM. I'm Stephanie Riegel. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Mansurs for more business Baton Rouge style on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch Baton Rouge is recorded live over lunch at Mansurs on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansurs is open for lunch daily 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.